Sexual harassment is an unwelcome sexual advance, unwelcome request for sexual favors, and other unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature which makes a person feel offended, humiliated, and intimidated. Organizations cannot compromise on the safety of its employees, irrespective of their gender, age, or employment status. The aim of all organizations is to protect its employees and provide a completely safe, secure, and dignified working environment free from all forms of harassment. There are two most common forms of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can be carried out by someone who is in a position of authority. Such a person can misuse the power that they have by asking for sexual favors from their subordinates in return for any job-related favors. This is something very common in organizations. The other form of sexual harassment is when the work environment is hostile. This is when the workplace is intolerable because of constant sexual or gender-based activities that interfere with the person's ability to work. Co-workers or supervisors can commit this type of harassment because it does not require any authority to create such an environment. Physical contact and advances. For example, any physical contact from a colleague or a supervisor that makes a person feel uncomfortable. Sexual harassment of a female employee by a male supervisor or employee can happen when he puts his hand on hers to move the mouse of her computer. He leans over her as she works or as she shows him something on her computer screen. He sits really close to her to the extent where there is mild contact when they are at a meeting or in her space of work. He deliberately keeps brushing by her when he walks past her. Maybe he reaches out to grab something and touches her, but acts as if it were by accident. During a formal handshake, he holds her hand for longer than needed. If she goes to greet him with a handshake, he advances close to hug her or puts his hand on her shoulder to bring her closer to him. If he touches her in any way that is inappropriate. Bottom line, any touch or advance that physically threatens and makes a woman feel uncomfortable is harassment of a sexual nature. Sexual harassment can also be perpetrated by someone who holds authority by demanding or requesting for sexual favors. Sexual harassment of a female employee by a manager or supervisor can happen when he may ask her to meet in his office over and over for reasons that after a point are irrelevant. He spends more time talking about his personal life and engages in non-official conversation with her. He asks too many questions about her personal life and doesn't stop even when she asks him to. He asks her out for dinner or coffee or something that is non-official, and when she rejects him, he threatens her with consequences. He insists that she accompany him on business trips which may not even be relevant to her job. He asks her to wear certain specific clothing for business functions or to meetings with top clients that she may not be very comfortable with. He behaves as though he is sexually attracted to her, but playfully rather than with serious intentions. He may outright offer her a better position, an increase in pay, or simply a better job task in return for sex. While this may not be physical in nature, but such behavior with a sexual overtone is again harassment. Sexual harassment can also be verbal, making sexually colored remarks. When someone passes a sexual remark to another employee, whether directly or indirectly, it is harassment. Directly could be someone telling another employee a sexual joke that they may not appreciate and that may offend them. Let's say two employees are sitting at lunch and are having a conversation that includes sexual comments and ideas. A female employee is sitting in close proximity to them and hears what they are saying, and she gets offended by this. This is indirect harassment. At a meeting, a manager or someone else passes a sexually offensive or a derogatory comment about women, and all female employees present at the meeting take offense. That too is harassment. Sexual harassment can also be perpetrated by certain gestures that are inappropriate. When certain hand or bodily gestures are made that have a sexual connotation. When an employee or a manager looks at another employee or manager inappropriately. When someone clicks a photo or shoots a video of another person without their permission and which makes them feel uncomfortable. On the other hand, virtual sexual harassment includes receiving sexually suggestive text messages from a colleague or manager where there is use of obscene, harassing, or discriminating language and lewd chat icons. Receiving offensive emails or jokes via your office mail account. For example, if a colleague or a supervisor sends you a link to a pornographic website or sends you a photo, funny or not, which is inappropriate. When sexually explicit images are displayed openly as a computer desktop image or screensaver on another colleague or a supervisor's computer screen. In all probability, you are being monitored. So, any communication or material on your computer, emails or messages that you send and receive, and the websites that you visit are being tracked by your company's system administration team and maybe even others who could have access. Be cautious of how you communicate with your colleagues and managers in any case of sexual harassment. It is important to be sensitive and aware of the things that you say and the way you behave towards other colleagues and your managers. As an employer, you need to ensure that people at all levels in the organization are being treated with respect and are also being respectful towards others. It should be made clear from the very start that discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated. All organizations must have a stringent policy against sexual harassment. As an employer, it is important to ensure that your company has a zero tolerance policy against sexual harassment. You also need to ensure that if any incident of sexual harassment does happen, you need to take responsibility and take the case up with the necessary people. It is essential that people be made aware of the procedures that they need to follow in order to report a case of harassment. It is the organization's responsibility to ensure that the case is handled and resolved and the necessary penalties are meted out to the perpetrators.